In the past two chapters, Yuji Itadori has gone from Luigi Itadori to Wuji Itadori.
Oh, why did I say that?
He's had an insane glow-up that most Jujutsu Kaisen characters could never dream of having, and it got me thinking, just how much stronger did Yuji get? Is it like a Maki to Awakened Maki kind of upgrade? Or is it a Gojo to Awakened Gojo type of upgrade? Is he a special grade now, or just the pinnacle of first grade? That is what we will be exploring today. The first thing we need to do is go over Yuji's entire kit so we know what we're working with. For the majority of Jujutsu Kaisen, this section would have been simple and easy. He takes hits and he punches hard. But now there's a lot more to it. First of all, Yuji has two curse techniques that we know of. The first is blood manipulation. Traditionally, blood manipulation is passed down within the Kamau clan, but Yuji was able to gain the technique by consuming the 6 remaining death's paintings. For a normal person, this would probably turn them into a reincarnation of the painting, but because Yuji is a death painting, he gains the technique instead. So far, we haven't seen too many traditional applications of the technique, such as flowing red scale or slicing execution, the only exception being piercing blood. This might be due to the short time span Yuji had to learn the technique in tandem with having other priorities, but we don't know for sure. So far, we have seen him use blood manipulation to damage Sukuna's face by spitting blood into it, and we also saw him use blood to retract his leg after it got cut off by Sukuna's domain. Despite being one of the techniques coveted by the big 3 clans, it's actually Yuji's less impressive technique, as the other one is Sukuna's technique, Shrine. Shrine, as we know it, under Sukuna is split into 2 techniques. Cleave, which can adjust to the hardness of objects to always cut them down in one fell swoop, and Dismantle, which has one standard strength. Because Cleave is able to adapt to different hardnesses, it is primarily used on opponents with cursed energy, whereas Dismantle is often used for inanimate objects. This is also the way they are applied to Sukuna's domain, but the way Yuji applies the technique is much different. Instead of sending slashes flying all over the place doing the most damage possible like Sukuna, Yuji uses Shrine precisely. There are a few different reasons this could be. The most likely one lies in how the duo approaches people differently, as Sukuna has never really cared for anyone, whereas Yuji is a lot more cognizant and empathetic to those around him, meaning he would not want to hurt them in the same way Sukuna would be okay with it. Another potential reason is that the same curse technique can manifest differently depending on the era and the sorcerer, so Yuji's interpretation could be the modern interpretation and Sukuna's is the Heian era one. And the final possibility is just inexperience. Chapter 257 implied that it was the rush of black flashes that allowed Yuji to use Shrine in the first place. And if that's the case, then this is literally the first time that he has ever used the technique, and as such his interpretation may be rudimentary. And to be completely honest, I don't think it's unfair to say that Yuji's interpretation of both blood manipulation and Shrine are kind of rudimentary. Remember, this kid has only had a month maximum with both of them, and considering the whole other slew of abilities he had to learn in the same time, I think it's unlikely he would be able to gain significant proficiency with either technique. Speaking of the other abilities Yuji learned, we still have to go over those. The student also learned Reverse Curse Technique and Simple Domain, the latter of which was done via switch training with Kusakabe, who engraved his Simple Domain into Yuji as well as his advanced Cursed Energy Manipulation. As for Reverse Curse Technique, we don't know the exact circumstances behind Yuji learning it, but it's almost guaranteed that Chozo was involved in some way. This is because Chozo is the only other Death's painting and as such is the only other person that can teach Yuji how to transfer his cursed energy into blood, which is an important skill as it makes Reverse Curse Technique much easier to learn and pull off. Normally, the act of turning cursed energy into blood is a part of why Reverse Curse Technique is so hard to learn and takes a lot of cursed energy to pull off. But because Death's paintings can do this act naturally, Yuji had a much easier time learning Reverse Curse Technique than the average sorcerer. And we're still not done with Yuji's abilities yet, because Yuji is also one of the 3 characters that has a cursed energy attribute, which basically means that his cursed energy itself has an effect. In Yuji's case, it is the ability to strike the soul directly when he punches someone. This allows him to do damage to the soul much more easily than the average sorcerer. And in the case of Sukuna, it lowers his synergy with Megumi, lowering his cursed energy output overall. Sukuna is the only person that we've seen suffer from this secondary effect so far, so we don't know if Yuji's punches have the same effect on other people as it was never clearly stated. I think it's unlikely that Yuji's punches have been secretly lowering cursed energy output this whole time, because literally no one else has mentioned it despite him facing a number of strong sorcerers. And we're still not done with Yuji's abilities. We're getting close though. The penultimate aspect of Yuji worth mentioning is his general tankiness. We don't know exactly why, but Yuji is insanely tanky. The dude takes hits like he has infinity. He shrugs off Sukuna's slashes, takes Makito's black flashes, and was barely damaged by Higuruma's hammer while he had no cursed energy. It's implied by Sukuna that this might have been the result of something that Kenjaku did when he made Yuji, but beyond that, we don't really know why Yuji is like this, despite the hardiness being his most defining feature, or at least his second most defining, because I think his most defining is his natural physical prowess. This is likely also a result of something Kenjaku did, or potentially a result of Jin being Sukuna's soul brother. Regardless of the root cause, Yuji's physical prowess is what carried him through the first third of Jujutsu Kaisen, giving him physical abilities similar to Maki but without a heavenly restriction. This generally gave him a leg up in the world of Jujutsu, as many stronger sorcerers who relied on their cursed energy reinforcement for their physical prowess became equal to him in basic strength because of his higher baseline. I can't really list specific instances of when his prowess helped him because it literally helped him every step along the way. It'd be like trying to explain how Usain Bolt's legs helped him run. It's self-explanatory. So with all that taken into account, we can finally talk about whether Yuji is a special grade or not. But what makes a special grade a special grade? Well, the only official qualification that we know of is being able to take over a nation single-handedly, but it's much more likely that achieving special grade status is more based on outright strength and, of course, special cases. Special grade sorcerers are at their root sorcerers that cannot be graded on the traditional Jujutsu grading scale, either because of their unique abilities or because they're just so much stronger it makes the scale obsolete, or both. So when we look at Yuji and consider whether or not he breaks the grading scale, or if he can or cannot take over a country single-handedly, we see that he doesn't really do either of these. Yeah, I don't really think he's a special grade yet. While it is clear that Yuji has gotten much stronger over the course of the 1 month time skip, I think he's a lot closer to the peak of first grade than the low end of special grade. And we can confirm this by comparing him to the official special grade sorcerers as well as Sukuna. There is one huge glaring issue when we compare Yuji to the majority of the special grades. He has no domain expansion. 4 of the 5 special grades are capable of the highest feat in Jujutsu, with the exception being maybe Geto since we never saw him use his. The real reason for this is that domains just didn't exist in Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Like literally as a concept, they didn't exist within Jujutsu Kaisen's power system. Not only do 4 of the 5 special grades have domains, but 3 of them are some of the most busted domains in this series, with Malevolent Shrine, Unlimited Void, and Mutual Authentic Love all having some enormously powerful effects, pushing their users already near insurmountable power even further. Yuji, on the other hand, has nothing. No domain other than simple domain. This really hampers his strength as a sorcerer when compared to the special grades, and it calls into question his proficiency with Jujutsu as well, as there are a number of even first grade sorcerers that have master domain expansion while he hasn't. And he had the aid of Sukuna in his body to help him understand domains. And domains are not the only shared trait that special grades have that Yuji doesn't. He also doesn't have a broken attack. Gojo has Hollow Purple, Sukuna has his Flame, Yuki has the Black Hole, and Geto has Maximum Uzumaki. The only exception is Yuta, who still kind of has one in the form of Rika's Laser, although it is much weaker with current Rika compared to Jujutsu Kaisen 0 Rika. But he can also use maximum output variations of any curse technique that he's copied, so he still kind of has one. Yuji's strongest attack, on the other hand, is, I don't know, a black flash with his maximum cursed energy in it, piercing blood, something like that, which really does not compare to the power that the special grades can produce. Now, having an attack like this isn't a direct requirement for a special grade sorcerer, but it does contribute to their qualification of being overwhelmingly powerful. Without this kind of finisher attack from Yuji, he is severely behind the other special grades in terms of power. Even Geto, who he's close to even with in all other categories, surpasses him because of the power and utility of Uzumaki. It's just that much stronger than any attack Yuji can produce right now. Much like a domain, I'm sure Yuji could develop some kind of technique like this. Maybe some kind of combination of blood manipulation and shrine? I don't know, I'm just brainstorming here. And unfortunately, the case for Yuji gets even worse once we start comparing feats. I don't want to get too into detail here because this could be a whole video on its own, so I'm just going to go over some of the important comparisons. First and foremost, compared to Gojo and Sukuna, he doesn't really keep up in any category. And I mean that. Yes, the narrator did imply that Yuji is close to equal to Sukuna in chapter 257, but he wasn't talking about Sukuna in good condition. He was talking about Sukuna here after getting hit by 7 black flashes that lower his cursed energy output and taking a full power Jacob's Ladder, all while keeping his heart beating via cursed energy due to being unable to heal it. This is corroborated by the earlier fights Yuji partakes in where Sukuna absolutely outspeeds him, sends him flying with close to no effort, and held his own against Yuji and Yuta while also maintaining Hollow Worker Basket. Now, I don't know about about you, but that doesn't sound like something that Yuji is capable of doing. I don't think I need to get too deep into why Yuji is not on the same level of Gojo and Sukuna yet, so I'll just say this. Yuta, the second strongest sorcerer in the modern era, admitted that he would have just gotten in the way if he tried to intervene in the Gojo and Sukuna fight. Considering Yuta is still decently stronger than Yuji, I think it's fair to say that Yuji is not on their level either. How do we know Yuta is stronger than Yuji? Well, allow me to explain. All we need to do is look at Yuta and Yuji versus Sukuna. While Yuji did contribute a ton to this effort against Sukuna, his contributions undoubtedly pale in comparison when compared to Yuta. Yes, Yuji was the key to their matchup and Yuta would not have been able to achieve their goal without him, but 90% of the damage done that allowed Yuji to talk to Megumi was done by Yuta. His wide variety of abilities allows him to be far more flexible than Yuji can be in general, especially since he has one of Yuji's techniques copied. Yuta also has a whole Rika at his disposal as well, and his huge pool of cursed energy allows him to beat out Yuji's physical prowess too. However, there is one aspect where they seem to be kind of even, and that is reverse curse technique when used on themselves. Obviously, Yuta does have the ability to use reverse curse technique on others, but when it comes to self-application, they seem to be healing at the same rate, or at least in this series of panels. But it does also kind of look like Yuta was more damaged here than Yuji, so it's kind of hard to tell. If we remove curse techniques from the photo, then these two become much closer, but I think even then Yuta is still the stronger of the two. And I think the same goes for Yuki as well, even though she is a bit weaker than Yuta. The main difference between these two is that Yuki is just so much more destructive. Like, she has to put so little effort into destroying whatever she wants. A barrier from the greatest barrier user in history, easily destroyed. A special grade curse spirit, easily destroyed. The ground upon which they stand, easily destroyed. She has potentially the most destructive curse technique in the series, and Yuji just doesn't compare. He might outscale her in terms of physical strength and stats without Star Rage, but once we bring that technique into the equation, it becomes obvious that he is just not stronger. And that's not even mentioning Garuda. I also think her reverse curse technique might be better, as she did completely heal a destroyed arm in a matter of seconds, but Yuji is also very solid in that category as we just stated, so it's kind of hard to tell for sure. And that brings us to Geto, the final and weakest special grade by a wide margin. And to be honest, I think Yuji might be stronger than Geto. If he went up against Geto in the same way Yuta did, I don't think the outcome would be too different. He absolutely smothers Geto in hand-to-hand combat and pretty much every other physical category. But at the same time, that doesn't really matter, because Geto is not a special grade for his strength. Even within these special grades, Geto is more of a special case than the rest, as he is within the category for his ability to take over a country with cursed spirits rather than for his outright strength. That's not to say he doesn't have strength, because he obviously does, but his strength is much closer to a first grade than the rest of the special grades. And honestly, as of chapter 258, that's pretty much where I see Yuji to be as well. He's just not quite there yet. He has the potential to get there, as it is implied that his potential is just as high as Sukuna's, but that doesn't mean he is one now. He has a long way to go before reaching the heights of Gojo or Sukuna, or frankly, even Yuta. Do I think he'll get there? Maybe. It's hard to tell right now. He is the main character, but he's also just a cog in Jujutsu, so it could go either way. Regardless, he's not a special grade now, and that I am confident of. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe and join the Discord. Also follow me on Twitch, because I'm going to start streaming there soon. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you again next week for another video.